Hi green lovers! Well, it's the end of August and what that means for me is that it's time to get my fall garden and my winter garden going. In fact, I've already got a lot of stuff started as you can see behind me. So in this video, I'm going to show you all that I'm getting started from seed in order to grow a wonderful fall and winter garden, my favorite garden of the year. Now, because I live in Northern California and most of the seeds that I'm starting are cool weather vegetables, they don't grow really well outdoors. And that's why I've got my indoor grow station where I can control the environment a lot better. But if you live in a cooler climate, you can very well start a lot of these seeds right outside and take advantage of the beautiful sunshine and the warm weather to get them off to a really good start. Let me turn around and show you what's growing in my grow station, the stuff that I got going already. So first off, brassicas. It's a little bit of a mess because these are my Brussels sprouts. Now, Brussels sprouts do not grow well in my part of the world, and this is actually an experiment. I've got a more heat-tolerant variety. It's called Hestia Brussels sprouts, and I actually got these started in June, and I need to do that in order to get them to the right size by the time I get them outside, which is right about now. But it's still really warm outside, so I'm going to hold off just maybe another week or two, and once I see the weather starting to steadily go down rather than go up. It's very unpredictable these days, but then I know that these will do well outside, and that's when I'll take and transplant them. So in the meanwhile, I'm actually harvesting the greens because these are clearly too big and they're growing out of the grow station. Hello. So yeah, I'm harvesting these and freezing them and using them in my cooking and all of that good stuff. And I'm continuing to fertilize these, and I'm going to keep them indoors for just a little bit more. Now, once these plants reach about this size, let me show you up close. See how thick that stem is and how nice and lush those leaves are? This just keeps growing and growing. You can see I've harvested many of the leaves. It's getting really bushy. But the flip side is that no amount of watering can keep these watered sufficiently, and I find myself constantly watering them until I discovered this hack. Let me show you. So take a look at this container. You can see at the bottom there are roots protruding through. And the reason that these roots are coming through rather than just swirling around inside the container is because, let me show you, I bottom water it. So in this setup here, I've got a tray that looks like this. So I've got this tray, and underneath it, so this is kind of what this looks like, and underneath there is water. And this is a 10 by 20 tray under this. So I just take out one of these containers and I pour water with a little bit of fertilizer. Now, I use synthetic fertilizer for my indoor plants. I just find that a lot of the organic liquid fertilizers tend to be a little bit stinky. So I use synthetic fertilizers, very diluted, to water these just to give them that nutrition to keep going. These water roots suck up that nutrition and results in all this beautiful growth. Now, if I want to slow down this growth, I would cut down on the fertilizer, but I add very, very, very little, like a quarter of the recommended dosage for these plants while they're indoors. And because I let it sit in this tray with those water roots sort of drinking from the bottom of the tray, I can go longer between waterings. I can go several days, often a week, maybe even more. The other brassicas that I've got going, actually it's pretty early, I've just gotten some started here, are things like kale and pak choi. And if I go up just a little bit over here, I've also got all my cabbages, cauliflower, and broccoli. So those are all the cole crops or the brassicas that I've got going at this time of year. I'm going to hold off a little bit more on my radish, which is also a brassica, because that really likes the cool weather. So moving on to the alliums. I've gotten one batch of onions started. Now this is a little bit early. I can actually wait until about maybe September, late September to get these started. But I'm doing an experiment. I'm starting these a little bit earlier. And in early September, I'm going to do a next batch and just see which one does better. And you can plant these really close together. I could actually sow these a whole lot thicker than I did here, but like I said, I was saving seeds, and these will continue to grow in this container until they're ready to go outside. And even though they are quite tightly spaced, these things don't have as expansive a root system. So this little container is more than enough to handle all of these until I'm ready to take them outside. They are also extremely easy to separate. So they are practically indestructible once you get them going. So even if they grow tightly together, I can easily separate them when I'm ready to plant them. Speaking of onions, I actually wanted to come out here in the hot, hot sun, afternoon sun, and show you my Egyptian walking onions. Now, I highly recommend that you try to get your hands on Egyptian walking onions. I've had these in my garden for a couple of years now, and this is just one spot that I've got them in. They are all over my garden, and I have planted them everywhere. And I've made several videos on this, but they're just one of the most rewarding plants. And this time of year, I actually replant them in different parts because if you look over here, let me flip the camera around. So these are actually the bulbs underneath that grow into new plants. You can see they're already starting to sprout, but you can take these out. These grow like scallions. Let me see if I can pull out this bunch here. It's really hard to pull out the entire bunch. They're coming out in bits and pieces. But you can see this is what they look like on the underneath. And you can eat these onions. They're a little bit on the strong side, but I normally grow them for the greens mostly because they give me greens pretty much all year round. These things are like hardy to zone 2 and they're like perennials. So you don't have to ever plant them again once you've got them going. And they're called topset onions because they grow these little bulbils on the top of the onions. So kind of imagine like this. I'll put a link to a video that I made on the Egyptian walking onion. And then they also grow from these bulbs underneath. So I would take these and I can plant these anywhere and I'll get a whole bunch of new green onions next year and they will multiply underneath just like scallions do. So yeah, try and get your hands on Egyptian walking onions. I just love these. They're my favorite onion, probably my favorite plant in the entire garden. I said scallions, but what I really meant was shallots. Speaking of shallots, which do divide underground, all you do is plant something like this in late winter, early spring, and within a few months this will divide into like 4 or 5 of these. It's pretty interesting to watch actually. So I grow these every year and then I save about maybe a dozen or so. I eat most of them of course, but then I save a dozen or so and I replant those and it multiplies. So one results in about 5. So I plant a dozen, I get about 60. So it's pretty good return. Now you can grow these from seeds as well. I just find that it takes so much longer. It's just so easy to go to the grocery store and pick up a bag of these. And as long as they are not sprayed and preferably organic, you should be able to get them to grow in your garden and reap a quick harvest. The next category of seeds I'm starting is herbs. And the king of herbs in my kitchen is cilantro. I wait all year for the cool weather to grow cilantro, and I have such a short cool season that I can't really grow it as long as I'd like to. So this is really fun for me to be able to finally start cilantro again. Some of my other favorite herbs to grow that only like the cool weather are dill, and parsley is also one of those that prefers the cooler weather. And I usually don't start parsley from seed because it takes forever to germinate. So I'm going to hold off on parsley, but definitely cilantro is going to be succession sowed every month or so starting now. And dill, I'm going to wait until the weather cools down. Dill does not like to be transplanted. So you want to set dill up where it's going to continue to grow for the rest of the season. So I'm going to wait a little bit more for dill. Another herb that I'm starting is oregano. So this is Greek oregano. I've got some weird oregano growing in my garden. It just doesn't taste very good. So I got some good seeds and I'm starting this again. Now this takes very, very long to grow. They are tiny, tiny seedlings. The seeds are extremely small. The seedlings are tiny and they take a long time to grow to a decent size. So even though these will only go out into my spring garden, I'm starting them right now because I'm hoping that they will take their time to grow and then they'll be ready come early spring to get them in my garden. I'm also starting some pink Chinese celery. This is the first time I'm growing that, and I got those from Baker Creek. A lot of rave reviews about that celery, so I'm going to try and grow that this year. That also grows very slowly, so I'm starting that early to put out in my spring garden. And another one that I've waited a long time to get started is lettuce. Now I'm starting a heat-tolerant variety. I'm going to start several lettuce varieties over the course of the season, but for now I'm starting this little gem lettuce. This is an adorable little lettuce and it's very heat tolerant. I'm also going to be starting some romaine varieties. They tend to be pretty heat tolerant as well. And I'll wait a bit in order to start my iceberg and my butter crunch lettuce. Those like the cooler weathers. But I'm going to be growing a lot of lettuce. And if you guys have been following my channel, you know that I love growing lettuce. Flowers are a must in my fall, winter, and spring gardens, and definitely my summer garden. This year, at this time of the year, which is fall, I am going to be starting both cool weather annuals as well as perennials. The cool weather annuals I'm going to be starting are calendulas, pansies, and nasturtiums. And the perennials that I'm starting are African daisies, gaillardia, and hollyhock, and lots more of these to come. If you enjoyed this video, I sure would appreciate a like, and do leave comments below on the seeds that you are starting for your fall, winter, and spring gardens. If you want to know how to prep your garden beds for an amazing season next year, do check this video next, right here. Until next time, live green and love your greens.